Benjamin wealth for life. Mahogany strong, yeah, we on our lane. Breaking every chain, never stay the same. It's a new day, yeah, we take control. Build it up, exit down, that's the goal. Yeah.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Mahogany Circle Podcast. I am Dr. Dan Young. I have with me the venerable Dr. Tabitha Russell. Dr. Russell, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you so much. I am excited about being here on today.
Wonderful. So today we're going to just jump right into it. We're talking about a principle that a lot of people resist, but every successful person learns, and that's the law of sacred separation. So let's talk about the reality. A lot of people think success comes from adding more. We have all the folks who tell you, listen, to be a millionaire, you have to have 4.7 streams of revenue. You have to manage all these people. You have to do all these things, more opportunities, more relationships, more projects. I know both Dr. Tab and I are susceptible and guilty of doing that as well. You know, trying to bring on as many commitments as possible. But what we find is that some of the greatest breakthroughs in life happen not by saying yes, but by saying no and figuring out what we need to release, Dr. Tabitha.
Yeah, I like to say that no is a complete answer, right? And a lot of times we feel like that we got to go over and above what no means. But no, that just means that we set boundaries, right? Like we now operate from that space of sacred separation, meaning that this is the line, don't cross it, right? And that sounds a little hard, and I know also that that's difficult because letting go often feels like losing, right? People stay connected to old habits, old friendships, old business models, beliefs, not because they're healthy, but because they're familiar. And we want to challenge the comfort zone today because, you know, people have been there way too long. They done outgrown it. You know, it's around here looking like a tank top on a 2-year-old on a full-grown person, right? So we want to challenge that on today. So I'm loving this topic.
Exactly. And familiarity can become one of the greatest barriers to growth. So today we want to talk about number one, why separation creates elevation. Number two, the difference between loyalty and limitation. Number three, how successful companies reinvent themselves. Number four, why boundaries are necessary for growth. Number five, give a couple real-world examples of strategic separation. And then finally, all the questions that listeners should ask themselves. So let's start with a really simple observation. Every level of life requires a different version of you. You know, I was just talking to one of my friends who's been through a separation, and we had the whole conversation about how, hey, listen, we still love each other. We're just different people. And obviously, we should never get into a marriage with the expectation of breaking up, but it is very necessary, as most successful people know, and most successful couples know, to continue to evolve in that marriage, to continue to date each other, to continue to change with each other. So we know that every level requires a different version. And with business, the habits that help you survive may not help you thrive. You know, my first job out of college, I was a financial advisor. And back then, you know, when we started the job, they gave us a big phone book for those people who are Generation Z or younger. A phone book is something like a contact list in your phone, but it is actually made of paper. And so it's about this big. Don't worry, you won't have to deal with one unless the apocalypse happens. But in essence, we got the phone book and we just smile and dial all day. And even though that made me successful in year one and year two, surprisingly, it's not what made me successful in year three and year four, even though it worked before. So even though that was a habit that helped me survive, it didn't help me get to the next level. Oftentimes, a relationship that helps you heal may not help you build. We've all seen copious movies where someone's heart was broken and there was someone waiting in the wings to sweep them off their feet with their caring and understanding. That's a fairy tale, folks. That dude never gets that girl. The girl never gets that dude because they're not properly yoked. If you need to know what yoked means, look at our last episode.
Right.
Even though it helped you heal, that may not be the one that's going to help you build. And also the systems that help you start may not help you scale. So one of those systems is, hey, I'm going to go through my email every single day and respond to every single query by every single person, including the person who's trying to sell me rental real estate and that prince from Nigeria. That might have been what helped you to get started. Dr. Tabitha, that will not help you scale.
It will not. I can remember being back in the days where I got into sales and we made phone calls from the phone book, right?
Mm-hmm.
They sitting there in the office flipping pages, or people that made inquiries. And so it was good for that time. It
Mm-hmm.
won't work today because, first of all, phone books are not available.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, people are a little bit more aware that the times have changed. And so we need to move on. So it's also just like climbing a mountain, right? The higher you climb, the less unnecessary weight you can afford to carry, meaning that you got to let some stuff go, right? It was good when you first got started to have the backpack on, the boots, and the big jackets and all those things. But as you go higher, it requires more energy, right? But less things on you. So it definitely does make a difference for sure.
Absolutely. So many people are exhausted because they're carrying things that no longer belong in their future. A lot of those are outdated beliefs. A lot of those are expired commitments. A lot of those are old identities. And a lot of it is just simply, Dr. Tab, the unfinished emotional baggage.
That's right. And the challenge is that those things often don't feel heavy until you try to move forward, right? It's so interesting to me. Like people talk about depression, for example. Well, that is cyclical, right? And it has several stages to it. There's anger, there's denial, there's all these different areas. And when they find themselves back to square one, it's like, well, what happened? I thought I was through this. No, you got one more cycle you got to go because you didn't get through it all the way. You just basically landed somewhere and thought you were okay and started the cycle all over again. So, yeah, it gets heavy until you try to move forward for sure.
That's right. And sometimes you just simply don't realize how much something's slowing you down until you attempt to accelerate. And really, the growth reveals the resistance. At the end of the day, if you want to go out, you want to go to the gym, you want to build muscle, the very first thing you have to do is tear down muscle.
Mm-hmm.
But then you need to make sure you're taking in the nutrients to help that muscle build by itself. And that's the same law with almost everything in the universe. Without destruction of something, there tends to be no creation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to make sure that we are not being held down by those things that are keeping us from this evolutionary process. So success, it also exposes baggage. How many times have we heard about some star in the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, that as soon as they had success, all of a sudden they had 15 third cousins once removed who managed to pop up somewhere. All of a sudden, your boy from your frat had a great investment opportunity in multi-level marketing as soon as you got your $10 million contract.
Baby mama drama.
That's correct. So you want to know where your baggage is? Tell someone you won the lottery, and then the baggage will show up. So, much like a 3-hour flight on Spirit Airlines, avoid the baggage. Because it will cost you greatly.
That's right.
You're much easier going without that. And so we know that any elevation demands separation. So let's talk about a case study, because obviously Dr. Tabitha and I, being highly credentialed, we think case studies tell you everything you need to know. But then we'll obviously break it down to brass tacks of what you might be dealing with. So one of my favorite case studies is always Netflix. Netflix might be one of the greatest business examples of sacred separation in modern business history. Most of us who are of a certain age, we remember how Netflix got started. But those of you who might be under the age of 40, you might just think, oh, you mean Netflix I go on my television? Well, it actually didn't start like that. Netflix started by mailing DVDs to people. So imagine your options are to either, and I remember thinking this when I was younger, it's like, so wait a minute. So I can go to Blockbuster and pick up the DVD right now, or I can have these strange people in Netflix promise me to send me the DVD in 3 days. That doesn't seem like it makes any darn sense. But keep in mind, oftentimes, if I knew I was going to have date night on a Saturday, or I knew I was going to be with the kids on a Saturday, or I knew something was going to happen in the future, then it actually worked well. And I didn't have to stop off somewhere. The DVD just appeared on my front porch, and then I would just send it back. So for years, the model of mailing the DVDs actually worked. And they had millions of customers, and they had strong growth and consistent revenue. Now, obviously, in this age of 2026, like that might as well be like Fred Flintstone running with Dino to go get something. I understand. But some of us in Gen X, we remember that this was cutting edge. Like it would show up on your front porch instead of me going to Blockbuster. So they had the consistent revenue. Everything looked successful, Dr. Tabitha.
Yeah, back then, you kind of had to plan those special days, right? Like family night for us was like, okay, we're gonna order them on Monday, get them by like Wednesday, Thursday, watch it on Saturday, and then remember to put it back in the mail, because if they didn't get it back by a certain time, you had those late fees, right? Or if we did stop by, like, Blockbuster and pick something up, there was 2 requirements. One was rewinding it before you take it back.
Oh, goodness, yes.
And then the second was to remember to drop it off, because there's been times where I've rode around with those in the car 2 or 3 days. So that's exactly why, though, with the Netflix model, when most organizations become vulnerable, when success convinces them that they don't need to evolve, right? Like a lot of people see Blockbuster as an app today. They understood the assignment, right? They understood that they could no longer stay in the space that they were and evolve properly. But for us that remember their journey, it's like, man, how far we've come, right? It just really makes so much of a difference. And that's this is such a great case study, because it shows us that proper alignment in that separation is everything.
Exactly. And obviously the greatest threat to the future is just current success, because you believe that that is going to exist forever. And Netflix leadership, for what they did at the time, it was cutting edge. And they had a leadership team that was strong enough where they saw something that a lot of companies just simply ignored, that technology was changing, consumer behavior is changing, the future is changing. So they actually faced a really difficult decision. Do we stay loyal to what made us successful, like a Blockbuster, or do we separate from it and then build what comes next, Dr. Tabitha?
Yeah, that's a scary decision, right? From going from where you are, a model that clearly is working, that people value, to now this newer model. Of course, that's a gamble, right? It's a faith walk. It's also a strategic move. So having people around you as your consultant, your advisors, or having your team allows you to stay on the cutting edge of everything. I quite often like to say, don't play about your niche or the thing that you're doing. Master it, right? Know the nuances of it and see the trends of your industry, so that way you can evolve with it. Because if not, you're abandoned in certainty.
Yep, absolutely. So imagine generating billions of dollars to these DVDs. Most executives would have protected the old model. Netflix disrupted itself before someone else could. They completely released the familiar. They embraced the uncertainty. They walked away from comfort. And in reality, that decision is what transformed the company.
Yeah, that's a powerful lesson for individuals as well, is that many people are holding on to the old versions of themselves. And I can say I've been there, right? Like, I sometimes operate a little bit like a creature of habit. But these days, having gone through, my journey, and clearly stepping into the realm of sacred separation allowed me to say that I'm fearless these days, right? Like there's not a lot that I'm attached to that I can't say, you know what, I don't need that anyways. Let me continue to just keep going. So it allowed even me though to let go of those old things because it no longer benefits me anyways.
Absolutely. So some people are very much still operating from survival thinking. And I think when we talk about wealth building, that is the biggest kryptonite to wealth building, believing that there is scarcity in anything.
Mhm.
And get trying to move people from survival thinking to thrive thinking is so difficult. Harriet Tubman had the great quote about, hey, in the Underground Railroad, I freed 500,000 slaves, and I would have freed 500,000 more if they knew they were slaves.
Mhm.
And so, slight exaggeration, but
Right,
but
right,
the whole point is about the mindset of being trapped in a system and not understanding you're in the matrix, as Kanye would
right,
say before he went
right.
insane. Well, all that, well, who knows? And so some people are still operating with that thinking. They're still carrying fears that in reality belong to a different chapter in their life, especially post COVID, post George Floyd. We talk about trauma, at least from my perspective, 10 times more than I ever talked about it. Before 2020. And so what that means is it's a really strong indictment against understanding that things that happened to us when we were 10, 20, 30, 40 are still informing the decisions that we're making now, even though we're living in a completely different season, completely different state with a completely different partner and completely different kids in a different house. We're still holding on to those. So some are holding on to careers they've outgrown, where they feel as though they've put in, maybe $1 million investment into private school, college, grad school, where you're living, where you've moved your family, but in reality, you've outgrown that career. I've done that twice in my career. So we have to think of that. And some are even holding on to relationships that have ended emotionally. I remember thinking in many times in the first time I was married that, you know what, I want to hang in there for the kids. And then the kids in their own way, shape, or form start saying like, Dad, you need to be out. And so, you're trying to do the right thing for your family, but it's really based on this feeling of safety and making sure that we understand that there is always something else out there. I'm not saying the grass is always greener. However, that grass will grow and die in the winter and regrow.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you're just hanging on to that same compost from 1998. So you need to allow that evolution to happen. So Netflix really teaches us something profound when it went to a digital service. The thing that got you here may not be the thing that gets you there.
Yeah, that's right. Success often requires gratitude for the past, right? Without attachment to it. I
Mm-hmm.
tell folks be like, you smile all the time. And I'm like, that's because I practice gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude allows me to see good in everything, right? It may not be my best day, it may not have been my best season, my best year, but the lessons that I learned through those seasons allow me to have a better future. And so I love having the opportunity sometimes to just go back and reflect on some things, but not stay there, right? Allow it to be the stepping stone that I needed. Thank you for the push, right? Thank you for that next place I need to go out of the comfort zone into something new. And it allows us to evolve and grow in many ways than one.
Absolutely. And that's really the essence of sacred separation. You don't have to hate the old season. We're not saying that at all. You simply have to just recognize when the season's over. Once it goes from summer to the fall and fall to the winter, you may love, that short set you have, but it's time for the bubble coat. And you need to know when it's time to put the bubble coat on and not be running around the short set out there.
That's it.
So one of the biggest traps that people face is really confusing loyalty with obligation. Now we all know loyalty is admirable, but loyalty can be dangerous if it's directed towards things that are no longer aligned with you.
That's right. We find that some people are loyal to an old identity, and others stay loyal to relationships that have become unhealthy. Like it goes back to that comfort zone scenario. It's like we're comfortable here. I'm familiar with you. I don't have to like you, but I'm gonna stay here because I fear what's on the other side. And so just knowing that limits endless possibilities, right? Like I'm in a season of life where I'm just like, you know what? Endless possibilities is ahead of me. And that's just how I think, how I feel, and how I move from the standpoint of if it doesn't benefit me, it's got to go, right?
Yeah,
So it really does make a difference.
absolutely. I mean, Dr. Tav, imagine, a butterfly being loyal to being a caterpillar, right? Growth is impossible. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is release what no longer belongs in your future, because that's a two-way relationship.
Mhm.
First of all, it's you releasing it so that you're able to do other things, but in some cases, whether it's an occupation or a relationship or anything, it releases them to find someone that's in the correct season, who
Mhm.
won't always be second guessing where they are, and that's a blessing to them as well.
That's right. That's not abandonment. That's evolution, right? That's you evolving into the newer version of you that the other things no longer fit, and saying that it's okay. You know what? I used to like that size, but unfortunately that size no longer like me. So I'm going to
Hmm.
move on to the next thing,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely. So, because growth requires movement, that movement requires space. So, let's talk a little bit about the cost of energy leaks now. So, every person listening has an energy leak. That might be social media, an unhealthy relationship, a side project that no longer matters. Maybe it's resentment, maybe it's fear. We all have those, someone once said energy vampires that just suck that energy out of you that can be better used, Dr. Tabitha, for the things that you're actually wanting to work on.
That's right. The interesting thing is that most energy leaks don't feel dangerous, right? Like we're so comfortable to it that it feels like second skin. But when we realize that it's no longer working for us, that's the time that we've got to, turn a blind eye to it and cut it off.
Hmm. So comfort is often stagnation disguised as safety, and every energy leak steals resources from you in some way, shape, or form, because those resources could be used for growth, for wealth, for impact, for an incredible number of things. However, they are we really think so lightly about what energy is. You know, one of the most valuable resources in the world is time, but a
Hmm.
more valuable resource than time is attention, and a more valuable resource than attention is intention. Making
Hmm.
sure that there is energy diverted in a very, very real, intentional way towards something. That's the simple reason why there are people that we all know who can get 8 hours of work done in 2 hours,
Hmm.
because they do not have the energy leaks, and they're putting all their intention towards a project. And when you put all that intention towards a project, you simply realize that some of the things that you were doing in the past, answering the emails, doing the sales calls, whatever, are quite simply done better by another person who's not worried about all the managerial architecture type of stuff. Dr. Dev.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Um, when we operate in that space of intention, like I quite often like to tell people that I practice time blocking, right? There's some
Mhm,
non-negotiables that I have in my schedule that I'm not going to not do.
mhm.
And having that level of intentionality, though, has allowed me to be so much more successful because I now block in the time for me to do certain things that allows me to be able to, evaluate the progress that I'm making on a real scale. So I like to say also that you cannot manage what you can't measure, right? So we need to, when we run our lives more intentionally, it allows us to have better outcomes, which means that success isn't just about acquiring resources all the time, right? But it could be about protecting them. So some things I'll just delegate. I'm not going to try it. I've tried it before. It takes me way longer than the expert. So why not let the expert do it, right?
Yep, 100%. Right. Someone once told me you can't expect what you don't inspect.
That's right.
And that's why doing the wealth plan is such an important part of the things that we talked about, because it's not just an exercise, it's showing intention towards a goal and intentionally understanding your skill sets and intentionally understanding the skill sets that you're looking for. So we know that every yes that we do costs something. Every commitment that we has a price. Every relationship requires energy. So it really gets down to a very basic business question. Is the return worth the investment? We all love to Netflix and chill, right? I never thought like 20 years ago, you'd have me sitting on a couch for 8 hours watching something and be like, wow, that was a really fast series. I never thought that would happen in my lifetime. But, I've started to become a little bit better. Now, obviously, I give myself those times because I work hard to do it. But I'm very cognizant of the opportunity cost. What did Netflix and chilling for 8 hours do? Did I miss out on something I could have been intentional doing with my wife, with my children, with my business, with my neighbors? Like, what did that attention to Netflix do that might have disrupted my intention for my goals? So let's take a look at a couple different examples of sacred separation. We know that Michael Jordan left baseball, returned to basketball. We know Netflix left all the DVDs behind. Entrepreneurs can leave jobs. Leaders can delegate responsibilities. Organizations can eliminate outdated strategies. So these are all different ways of kind of creating that separation that then frees up the energy that then allows you to create more intention towards the things that you're actually looking to do.
That's right. I believe that the common denominator here, though, is that they weren't running from something, right? They weren't running away from something, but they were moving towards something, right? Moving towards innovation, moving towards their purpose and their passion from the entrepreneurial standpoint, right? And leaders that delegate responsibilities, like they are able to do so effectively because they understand their value, right? And they understand the value in others by letting them do what they're good at. So allowing things in your ecosystem to evolve, man, that could be game changing.
Absolutely. So sacred separation is not about rejection. It's just about alignment and creating space for what belongs. And I remember being in the position of being a leader and then having things that I had to start to delegate. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I almost feel bad giving this person, like, you have this, you're in college, you're an intern, you have these things. And that's just what's in my mind, because I'm in like this different mindset. They're thinking like, you're telling me I can just sit here and like go through some business cards and then you'll pay me? Like, bro, like I'll do that all day. All day, every day, if you're paying me. So it's really about finding the right people, being properly yoked with all the folks on your team, and then finding out what's in their inventory that they're trying to do and making sure that they are doing something that's in alignment with what they want to do, so you can do with what you want to do. So I want everyone to kind of ask themselves 6 questions, or ask themselves a number of questions after this podcast. Question number 1, what am I currently tolerating? Right? There's that phrase that, you always want to go somewhere where you're celebrated, not tolerated. Right? So what are you currently tolerating right now that you feel is sapping the energy? It might be answering emails. It might be doing customer relationship management. It might be doing social media, like all these different things. But you need to make a list for question number 1. What am I currently tolerating? Number 2, what relationship do I have that's more draining than it is developing? Now, this can always be a very difficult question, because you have to get really real with yourself about a relationship that just drains energy more than it's building you up. And oftentimes that relationship can be with a spouse. It can be with a parent. It can be with a child. Those of us with children, we understand that. Like, I'm still looking for my ROI. It may come a long time down. It's going to be like a treasury bill. It's like, I just have to sit on it for 50 years. And eventually I'll get some ROI on that. But with that being said, it only takes me watching one of my kids like in one volleyball game, and automatically it pays back everything with how I feel, right? So what are those relationships that just are draining without paying you back in a way? Number three, what commitment no longer aligns with my future? I know one of the basic things that happens with most entrepreneurs who have a product that requires other people, all of a sudden you join all the clubs. You join the Rotary Club, you join the Lions Club, you join the Kiwanis Club, you join, a fraternity, you join like local chambers of commerce. You do all the things, right? But some of those might not actually align with your future. So what are those commitments that you've signed up for that do not align with the future, and make sure that you can suavely and respectfully start to move away from them? Number four, what belief is keeping me small? Like this is a huge one. Oftentimes a lot of our goals and dreams are simply too small. Like we are sitting there trying to create magic instead of creating movements. You have been given a divine mind and intellect. And for the most part, human beings are only on this earth to create extraordinary things. Everything else pretty much in our system has a cause and effect. Bees are out there, pollinate trees, pollinate flowers. It's a very cause and effect relationship with most of nature. The reason why humans are here, we don't actually know. But the best thing that we can figure out is we have a specific way of thinking that other animals do not have. And so we can actually create things that no other being on this planet can create. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's one of the major reasons why we're here. And so why not sit in that instead of just being a consumer all the time? Produce something and think about what are those really small beliefs that you have that are holding you back from doing something grand. Question 5 is, if I were to start over today, what would I not choose again? Also, another important question. If you could look back, and obviously many of us don't have tons of regrets. We understand that most of the people who are listening to this podcast, we can take a bad situation and say, well, here's what I learned from it. We don't believe in winning or losing. We believe in winning and learning. However, if we're honest with ourselves, we're starting over today, what would I choose to not do again? And so that can inform what I don't want to do in the future. Number 6, would it be possible? What would be possible if I finally just released it? Or as Seth Godin, the marketing guru, says, what happens if I just ship it at 70% instead of trying to make it perfect? So in a lot of cases, you will never know maybe what you would do. You might even know what your family will do. You might even know what your family and your friends will do. You will never, ever, ever know what 50,000 people think or 100,000 people. So the best thing you can do when you have a great idea is simply release it and then get feedback and then tweak it based on the feedback, as long as it does not counteract what you are. The most important consumer of anything is you. There's a great interview done by Rick Rubin, who was the mastermind behind the Beastie Boys and a number of other hip hop groups in the 80s and 90s. And someone asked him what the key to his success was. And he said, I only release music that I like. Like, not one point in time do I think to myself, should I change No Sleep to Brooklyn to No Sleep to Manhattan? Because Manhattan is a bigger city. So maybe I'll sell more stuff. Like, he didn't think that.
Yeah.
He just did No Sleep till Brooklyn. And so you want to, obviously, to be in business, you want to be able to sell things. But what you're going to be able to sell more than anything else is your passion, because there's so few passionate people in the world. If you create something and you release it and it's based on your passion and your excitement, you will bring people along because they want to feel that, because they haven't felt that in so long. And number 7, what is my Netflix moment? What am I afraid to leave behind, even though I've outgrown it? A lot of these questions are going to be questions that are going to be a little bit uncomfortable to answer. But Dr. Tabitha, all we've talked about in this whole podcast is about being uncomfortable is the key to growth.
That's it. That final question alone could change someone's life, right? Really just sitting and doing the work around what no longer serves me, right? what if I outgrown, and how can I now move on to that next level, could be the difference between, night and day and breathing air, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could really make that much of a difference. So today's lesson is simple. Every breakthrough requires space, and space is created through that separation. I just know that anytime I've ever drawn the line in the sand and said, that's it, and cut something off, that it's been so much more better going forward, right? It's almost been liberating. I was talking with someone, and they were talking about they could remember a time when they lost their home, for example, because of being in this space of financial literacy. We get the opportunity to talk about that at times. And they said that the first night that they spent in their apartment, they slept so good. Like they had not slept like that in months, because they were holding on to something that they thought was their identity, that they thought, people were going to look down on them. They thought, the kids would be disappointed in them, and all of these things. So they made it into a whole thing and decided to go ahead and just let it go and move. And fast forward today, they now own multiple properties and things like that. But they had to go through that in order to get to where they are today.
Absolutely. But also, this is the reason why the Mahogany Circle podcast will never be sponsored by a divorce attorney, because you'll all be wilding out after these things, and people are just destroying the rates afterwards. Like, I've done ungrow with that, brother. Let me call this number. Like, we're not going to do that. Take a deep breath. Make sure it's right. But then after you do that, then grow.
Right.
So I'll leave everyone with this. The future rarely arrives because we hold on tighter to something. The future usually arrives because we finally release what no longer belongs to us. We know that this is uncomfortable. And there's going to be a lot of different parts of entrepreneurship in general that are uncomfortable, because once again, they don't teach this, right? Even those of you who've been lucky enough to have entrepreneurship classes in high school or college, you've had the lemonade stand, all those things. You never had a lemonade stand with a mortgage and 3 children.
Right.
So now you actually have to make some choices. You can't just go run in the house, have some SpaghettiOs, go to sleep, and call it a night. So we understand that this is difficult, but what we are saying is, just let it go. Just trust the process, create the space, and watch what enters into the space. Because success isn't just about what you pursue. It's also about what you're willing to release. So thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Mahogany Circle Podcast. We will see you next time. And as my hero, Dr. Tabitha, always says, keep building wealth, purpose, and legacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Mahogany Circle, where we rise up, make it all come forward. From the ground up, yeah, we build it right, turning knowledge into wealth for life. Mahogany strong, yeah, we own our lane, breaking every chain, never stay the same. It's a new day, yeah, we take control, build it up, pass it down, that's the goal. Entrepreneur spirit, we running the game, no shortcuts here, we earning the name. Investing smart, let the money grow, multiple streams, watch the cash flow. Dr. Dan with the plan, map it out clear. Dr. Tabitha, the voice, yeah, you need that here. Game so solid, no room for fear. We talking wealth, that lasts for years. Ownership keys, yeah, we unlock doors. Teach you how to build, then build you more. It's bigger than now, it's deeper than fame. It's family warmth, yeah, that's the aim. We don't chase it, we create it. Every move is elevated. From the vision to the strategy, this is legacy, reality.